What's up guys, Houndish here, and today Revenant launches in Destiny 2, and of course this is the second episode in the final shape year, so for the next 4 months this will essentially be the content drop. Alongside the new content though, there's a fairly significant Sandbox update, actually one of the biggest that we've had in the last year. So in the video today we're going to go over some of the key changes, patch notes and things to be aware of as we head into the reset, and this could be useful if you want to spot any weapons that you'll go after. That includes new stuff, reprised gear, and key featured rewards for this episode. But we'll break down patch notes related to the Sandbox and launch specific notes to be aware of which Bungie have recently outlined. So as always guys, I hope you find the video useful, and if you do, a rating below very much helps us on the channel. But without further delay, let's get into it. And initially, with the update dropping today, it's worth keeping in mind for October 8th at 6:45 AM Pacific, D2 will be brought offline, so there'll be a few hours of maintenance immediately before the reset, and then update 8.10 will drop at 10 AM Pacific. So kind of a typical update cadence right there. As always though, server stability can be hit and miss alongside these updates, so while we hope that that won't be the case, I would certainly prepare for potentially a couple of hours of disruption, especially immediately at the launch. And then as we get into the new content, Bungie have shown off some of the new rewards like the weapons, and we know about a handful of exotics which we've covered in other videos, so we'll find out precisely how we earn all of this stuff and what the distributions will be once we get into the activity content. But for changes happening to the game alongside the new content, firstly, we are going to see reprised Garden of Salvation weapons. So Bungie are updating a handful of these. We'll get Reckless Oracle, which is a void rapid fire auto rifle. The perks have been updated on all these weapons, so we will see the full perk pools once it drops, but there'll also be a Crude Redemption, a Kinetic Precision Compound Bow, Zealot's Reward, a void rapid fire fusion rifle, and then there's Ancient Gospel, a void adaptive frame hand cannon, as well as Sacred Provenance, the aggressive kinetic pulse rifle, Prophet of Doom, an arc precision shotgun, and the Omniscient Eye, which is a solar rapid fire sniper. And Garden of Salvation will be the featured raid in one of the next couple of resets, so there'll be some good stuff to go after there. Plus, Bungie have outlined that the pursuit weapon for this season will be the Fair Judgment, which is a stasis precision auto rifle, and we'll be able to pick that up by visiting the ritual vendors, Shaxx, Zavala, or the Drifter. But for Crucible, we'll see the addition of the Anonymous Autumn, an arc lightweight sidearm. Competitive will get the Deadlock Stasis Precision Frame Shotgun, and then for Vanguard Ops there's Wicked Sister, a strand adaptive grenade launcher, and the Nightfall will see a brand new weapon called the Rake Angle, which will be a stasis aggressive glaive. So I'm curious to try that out, but we'll also see Plug 1, an arc precision auto rifle, which is being reintroduced into the Nightfall pool, as well as the return of Bygones, which will be dropping from Gambit. So nice to get an update on some of those rewards. Plus, for this episode, when the Iron Banner returns, there'll be a brand new armor set, which we can see on screen, as well as the new stasis rocket frame sidearm, which is the Tanesha's Mastery. And so Bungie are clearly trying to get a few folks into the Iron Banner to pick that one up. Plus we'll see a reprised Archon's Thunder, and you can see the potential perks for both of those weapons on the screen there. But again, there are a host of brand new weapons, new exotic armor, and unique rewards which will be linked to the episode content specifically. But separate to that, we get the Sandbox update. Now, this is very significant, and as Bungie outlined, Titans will get a handful of updates. Firstly, the Titan Barricade will now taunt enemies that are in front of it, which essentially means it draws their attention. And alongside that, Bungie are reducing non-boss combatant damage dealt to the barricade by 50%, so their survivability is improved outside of boss damage. They'll also see increased splash damage reduction, and barricades will now grant moderate damage resistance, so it's going to be quite interesting to try those out. There are changes for Unbreakable on Titans as well, where damage blocked by Unbreakable now generates grenade energy, and we'll see an increased max duration for the shield that can be held. But Bungie have also outlined Void Overshield changes, and they're increasing the Overshield PvE damage resistance from 50% to 70%, so that's fairly huge as well. Moving into other Titan changes though, for Consecration, Scorch and Slam Waves will now shatter stasis crystals. Plus there are some good changes for Diamond Lance, and thrown or slammed Diamond Lances will now shatter crystals as well, and slamming Diamond Lances will grant you and nearby allies 2 stacks of frost armor. Plus for Shiver Strike, it now attaches a stasis explosive to the target on impact, as well as refunding 80% melee energy on a whiff, with an increased energy recharge rate of 12.5%, and immediately after landing a Shiver Strike attack, the attacker's melee ability is suppressed for 0.5 seconds. There's also an adjustment for Facet of Command and Echo of Domineering, where the cooldown is reduced from 11 seconds to 4 seconds, so that's a positive. I'd love to get your thoughts on the Titan reworks down in the comment section. There are changes for supers as well, and for the Warlock's Storm Trance, they're increasing the damage resistance, so survivability will be improved slightly there as well. They're also increasing damage resistance from 45% to 55% on Chaos Reach, and for Nova Warp, PvE damage is being increased by 20%, again with increased damage resistance, and all Nova Warp detonations apply volatile now as well. Then for the Hunters, Marksman and Deadshot Golden Gun see increased damage against base, elite, and mini-boss combatants by 30%, and for Spectral Blades, they're increasing PvE damage by 20%, again with a boost to damage resistance of 11 points. For Titan supers though, Howl of the Storm can now be used while Glacial Quake is active, and for Twilight Arsenal, Thrown Axe projectiles now more consistently track towards closer targets to the reticle center, plus they're increasing Twilight Arsenal's Axe Relic weapon damage by 23%. Then for Thunder Crash, they're increasing the base detonation damage by 33%, and finally Fist of Havoc sees increased damage resistance again, plus they're improving consistency in hitting targets with a light attack, as well as an increase to the range and the ability to target enemies vertically. So some fairly significant Sandbox tuning updates there. There are also adjustments to existing exotics in the game though, and we won't break down every single change, but Lucky Pants see airborne effectiveness improvements, and they also no longer require hand cannons to be matched to the super damage type or kinetic to receive the PvE damage buff. For Younger Hamkara's Spine, they now receive ability energy on Trip Mine Grenade hits as opposed to just final blows again. Then on Blight Ranger, Bungie have added the ability to cancel your Arc Staff super while equipped, which damages and blinds nearby enemies and grants a tier 4 arc weapon damage boost. So that's pretty good, and for Raiju's Harness, there's a complete rework of the perk, and activating Gathering Storm calls down lightning on all nearby targets, jolting them while amplifying allies, and defeating debuffed targets grants a small amount of Gathering Storm energy. They have, however, reduced the Spirit of the Syntheseps melee damage bonus provided when Biotic Enhancements and Stylish Executioner are active by 50%, so quite a big change on that one. Then for Titans and the Icefall Mantle will now gain stacks of Frost Armor for rapid stasis final blows, plus every stack we pick up will give us a small amount of healing, but they no longer provide stasis weapon bonus damage, and they do require a stasis super to be equipped to benefit from the exotic perk. Then for the Cadmus Ridge Lance Cap, they've removed the stasis requirement, and now any final blows or rapid precision hits while behind a rally barricade will create a Diamond Lance, and hitting enemies with that Diamond Lance will now create 3 stasis crystals. For Ursa Furiosa, they're increasing the maximum super energy gain for Unbreakable in PvE from 15% to 20%, and for Curus of the Fallen Star, melee final blows while amplified now grant super energy, and they've reduced the damage bonus from Curus to Thunder Crash from 2 times to 1.55 times. Plus they've replaced the Overshield with damage resistance instead, which is 50% in PvE. There's also that rework for Peacekeepers, where dealing damage to combatants with an SMG increases SMG damage for a short time, up to a maximum of 20 stacks, which is 100% damage bonus. So that could be worth playing around with. And then, for Mask of the Quiet One, rapid final blows and final blows while at critical health will now grant Devour. And there are changes for Stoicism, the exotic class item for Titans, and for Spirit of the Horn, activating Thruster leaves a ball of solar energy behind, exploding and applying Scorch to enemies caught in the blast. For Alpha Lupi, activating Thruster heals you and nearby allies, and for Spirit of Horfrost, activating Thruster spawns a pair of stasis crystals. Finally, for the Warlocks though, and Ballador's Wrathweavers, Bungie have adjusted the Hearts of Ice perk to increase the shadow damage of targets frozen by Shanebinder projectiles by 100%. For Skull of Hamkara, they've added weapon defeats while Devour is active grants super energy, which ranges from 1% to 4.5%. And for Sanguine Alchemy, it now marks targets we damage while standing in a rift, and we deal 10% extra damage from any source against those targets, and provides Surge ×4 to weapons that match the super damage type. Then for Spirit of Verity and Verity's Brow, the first stack of Death Throws now provides plus 40% grenade damage in PvE, and each additional stack provides 15% damage. So at 5 stacks that's 100%, which is pretty wild. And for Cenotaph Mask, damaging a vehicle, boss or champion with a trace rifle will once again visually mark the target for the player using Cenotaph. For Osmiomancy Gloves though, they are reducing the increased seeker distance and speed by 50%, and for Speaker's Sight, 6 instances of healing a damaged ally in Crucible will spawn an Orb of Power. So those are, once again, some fairly big changes to a bunch of exotics in the game. But there are a handful of changes to weapons as well. So for autos, scouts, pulses, SMGs, sidearms and hand cannons, Bungie are increasing the critical hit damage by between 5 and 7% depending on the frame. Then for heavy burst pulse rifles, including Graviton and Revision Revision 0, they're increasing RPM from 300 to 324, but also decreasing damage in PvE by 18% for legendary weapons in the subfamily, and 8% for Graviton and Revision 0. So that's a bit of tuning against the rate of fire change, but for snipers they're reducing flinch by 50%, camera roll by 10% against players, and also increasing damage against miners by 60%, mages by 75%, plus there's a boost to mini-boss and champion damage there as well, so snipers are certainly going to be worth trying out. Plus for shotguns, they're increasing range in PvE. Rocket-assisted sidearms though will see reduced reserve ammo by 25%, and for trace rifles, they've increased the spawn and crate PvP ammo from 25 to 29. There's also an increase of critical hit damage by 4% for high-impact machine guns. Then for heavy ammo grenade launchers, in general, they're decreasing damage from the detonation by 5% against combatants, but they are increasing projectile impact damage correspondingly. And in PvE, the total damage is the same, but split between the two different impacts. Then for rapid-fire grenade launchers, they're increasing the impact and detonation damage by 7%. And there's a separate breakdown of changes for exotic weapons. That includes Huckleberry, which now fully reloads on kills, and the Catalyst will have kinetic tremors, so that's pretty nice. The Taraba will grant increased damage resistance against incoming solar damage, which is 50% versus combatants and 15% versus players. Then on the Symmetry, it gains a stack of dynamic charge on kills in addition to precision hits. And the On Black Wings perk for Duality will stack to a maximum effect reduced from 5 to 3, but they have extended the duration of the buff from 7 to 10 seconds. And on the Bat Juju, they're increasing the lifetime of String of Curses from 3.5 seconds to 5.5 seconds, and that's 7.5 with the Catalyst, plus the magazine size goes from 27 to 36. And for the Exteris, they're increasing the direct hit damage versus combatants by 33%. They're also adjusting the recoil and projectile to have a much flatter trajectory overall, and it'll get +5 ammo in reserves, spawn moths on 2 direct hits, and they've reduced the moth cooldown from 4 to 3 seconds. Fighting Lion will additionally spawn a volatile burst on direct hits, which is nice. And for Prospector, it now spawns 3 powerful cluster bombs on detonation, which deal substantially more damage than what it did previously. They have removed the sticky grenade, as well as flame and remote detonation functions, reduced the magazine size by 6, but bonus ammo reserves on the Catalyst has been changed to +50 reload speed. Then for Chaperone, they've added the ability to trigger Roadborne on 2 rapid precision hits. Plus it gets +20 stability, +25 reload speed, and increased base ammo reserves. Then finally, for Lumina, they've updated the hipfire projectiles to behave more closely to support auto rifle healing shots. So again, like we said, this is a very significant Sandbox update. There are even more quality of life adjustments that are coming as well. But as always, I'll keep you posted with patch notes and things throughout the week, and any new stuff that we learn when the update goes live, as well as all of the new content. So get locked and loaded here on the channel, hit subscribe and I will keep you up to date. Hopefully you found the video today useful though, and if you have, a rating below very much helps us on the channel as well. But otherwise, let's have an awesome launch week for Revenant, hopefully, servers pending. We'll see how everything pans out. For now though, thanks as always for watching, and I hope you guys have an awesome day.